the Rebel Author Podcast, where we talk about books, business, and occasionally bad words.
Hello, Rebels, and welcome to episode 169 of the Rebel Author Podcast. And I tell you, there could not be a more serendipitous episode number than 169 for today's intro. But I'll get to that in a moment. Today, I'm speaking to Emilia Rose all about subscriptions, Patreon, memberships for authors. And it is a cracking episode, and Emilia is ridiculously inspirational. So yeah, we will get to that in a moment. First of all, the question of the week, which was, tell me something positive. So we've got Eden Collier who said, so I've got a few positive things. One, a baby puffin is called a puffling. Oh, I love that. Norway once knighted a penguin. What the fuck? If this is a historical story, please actually tell it to me. I'm very interested. And number 3, a pig's orgasm can last up to half an hour. What? Can humans have that? Okay, Torna says, I am setting up a new website and building it myself. That's incredible. I am most interested in mystery, but I procrastinate with poems and short stories of speculative fiction. Much of my time is involved in illustration and sculpture, and Torna is ridiculously talented as well. I've seen some of her artwork. In addition, one website and one pen name is daunting enough for me, at least for now. HC_Fitzpatrick says, positives. I've had 2 aha moments that set up 2 characters in future books in my current world, and they broke the dam on my plots. Fuck yeah, they did. I love that. Worderella says, super episode. I also loved the Addams Family and Beetlejuice as a kid. Yeah, you did. And my husband was very startled to have only recently found that out. How? My positive thing this week is that I found a new printer for my stationery shop where I can have a better product for less overhead. Oh, that is a fucking win. So my writers get a better journal without a price increase. So I'm geeked about it. That is incredible. Carrie Hardisky said, loved this episode. Something positive. My tiny rebel started a new speech therapy program just before school started, and her vocabulary has exploded in a few short months. And boy, has she gotten sassy. Oh, I love that. I absolutely love hearing this. Okay, Catherine O'Sullivan Brown said, great episode, something positive. My 4-year-old now knows all the words to Merry Christmas, everyone, by Shakin' Stevens. And it's so funny and so cute listening to her sing along in the back seat. Every time we get in the car now, it's put the Ba Dum Dum song on, Mummy. Oh, that is so cute. I love that. Oh, these things definitely bring me joy. I have loved this. And so this week's question is along the same lines, but it is technically different. So the question that I'm asking today is, tell me something you love about yourself. Okay, so this is the point that I would normally do the book recommendation, but instead we're going to pause a minute and we're going to do the personal update. Now, let me warn you, this is going to be a slightly longer intro than normal because today I am going to reveal what I have been doing, if I can get a grip of my voice and not sound like a fucking mouse. I'm just so excited to share this. So, as you know, I've been a bit of a dick recently because I've been super secretive and I've not been telling anybody anything. But there was like a reason for that. And I have now posted this on Patreon, and I'm going to use my post as kind of a guide to talk you through this so that I don't go off the walls squealing about all kinds of stuff. But in 2021, if you're up to date, you will probably know some of this, but you won't know the reveal. So in the summer of 2021, I read a sapphic young adult book. Sapphic meaning, including any type of woman who loves or dates or sleeps with another woman. That's probably not the correct definition, but it's the definition I'm using for the sake of the podcast. So I read a young adult book, and it shattered my brain. I mean, literally, it was like I had this giant fucking awakening, realizing that there were books with people like me in them. And I had for a long time stopped feeling anything about books. And we always joke about me being dead on the inside. But of course, there's a reason for that, because I hadn't really been feeling a lot of things about books and fiction. And so it was a revelation to me that I could see myself in a book. And of course, I wanted more. It was like crack, right? Like I was completely hooked immediately. So I binge read dozens and dozens of sapphic young adult books. And then I ground to a halt and realised that I was bored. And why was that? Well, look, here's the thing. That for what it's worth, I don't think there's anything wrong with sapphic young adult. I'm actually I've already written a sapphic young adult book. But what I realised is that it's all clean and sweet. And I don't think it's much of a leap for any of you listening to realise that I am neither clean nor fucking sweet. There is no part of me. I mean, I have been described in a variety of ways. None of them have ever included clean and sweet. So I needed to find something a little bit more me, but I still wanted to be seen. I still wanted to see myself in fiction. And then I stumbled across Queen Takes Rose by Katie Robert, which is, I don't know if it's erotica or if it's just like really spicy romance, but sorry for my WhatsApp there. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. It's very steamy anyway, and it was the first adult book that I read that had a lesbian romance in it. Actually, that's not true. I had read some indie authors' lesbian romances, but this was a long time ago, and I wasn't really in the right headspace to kind of read them for what they were. Anyway, this particular book kind of trod the line between contemporary and fantasy because it's based on I guess Disney villains. Anyway, you should go check it out. And what it did was it opened up fantasy romance to me. Now, I hadn't really read fantasy romance before. And as you know, I fucking love fantasy and I fucking love romance. How the fantasy romance genre had eluded me for this many years, I don't really know. But anyway, suffice to say, it opened a can of worms and I fell down the rabbit hole hard. And I read a lot of straight fantasy romance. I was reading steamy shit. I was reading less steamy shit. I was reading spicy stuff. I was reading dark stuff, sweary stuff. And fuck me, if it didn't feel like the warmest, homiest home I had ever encountered. Like, oh my goodness me. It was like desire and chocolate and fucking orgasms. It was everything that I wanted. But that's not what Sasha's known for, and it's not what I was writing fiction-wise. And yeah, okay, like if we look at my non-fiction, of course it's sweary, of course there's dick jokes in there, there's sarcasm. So that kind of aspect fitted me. But as you guys know, the last 4 years were extremely difficult for me with fiction. I had basemented in a lot of my strengths. Come on, everyone drink. We all knew I wasn't going to get through this fucking episode without talking about strengths. But I had a lot of wounds, like strength wounds that needed dealing with in order to help me with my fiction. And I had lost pretty much all of my confidence with my fiction. And that's why it took me so fucking long to finish Trey. So, you know, if I'm being honest, I really did drag myself over that finish line, and I was kind of like limping and bleeding. And total openness here, the sales reflected that, and that's fine. You know, that series, I tried to put too much stuff into it. I made a lot of rookie mistakes. I'm extraordinarily proud of that series, and you can see how much I grew from start to end in it. But also, like, I wanted to do it right this time. So I realised that somewhere along the line, I had really fallen foul and I'd lost the joy of writing. And like, if you have been around for any amount of time, you may have read my annual review posts where I always include the picture of me on my worst day in my corporate job. Or you may have been around long enough to have read my quit post, like I quit my job post, and I'll include that in the show notes as well. But the thing is that I came to this industry because I was in pain and because I wanted to play with my inner 2-year-old. Like, I wanted my inner 2-year-old to write fiction and to be full of joy and just escape. But here's the thing, right? What I've learned through coaching is that somewhere down the line, I stopped loving myself. I was functioning, I was existing to do the work, pay the bills, and keep everyone, alive. And like, I'm not going to open a can of worms here and talk about all of the ins and outs of it, but suffice to say, I realised that I didn't actually love myself, and I wasn't proud of myself, and I didn't think that I was worthy or valuable, or that what I was giving the world was valuable. And you can hear the pain in my voice, which is why I'm not going to go into huge amounts of detail, because, that's all my own bullshit to deal with. Suffice to say, I have moved on from that. Obviously, it still hurts me, but I am growing through it. And I think this is just another reminder that what you see on the outside is what people want to show you, and it isn't always a person's truth on the inside. Doesn't mean they're not being authentic. It just means they're not always showing you all of themselves. We are a multitude of different aspects and elements of ourselves, right? And all of those bits are worthy and valid, and they can all exist simultaneously, but you can't always show all of yourself to everybody. Anyway, what I want to say here is that if you feel this way, just know that I see you and that I understand. And yeah, so this, anyway, shifted something inside me. This was a huge fucking realization. And I was so done hating myself. I was so done letting other people's judgments seep into my mind and influence my own judgment of myself. And it's interesting because with the Black Heron episodes, Rachel and I are reading Happy Money by Ken Honda at the moment. And I was reading last night and he said something that just fucking fried my brain. The bullies are just in their minds. The person who is really judging them is themselves. And I was just like, fuck me. This is exactly what I have learnt, that it was me. It was me this whole time. I was the one judging me. I was the one telling me I wasn't good enough, telling me I hadn't worked hard enough, telling me that I would never write well enough, what I'd written wasn't worthy, wasn't valuable, that I wasn't lovable, all of this other bullshit. And so it was, it's huge. It's a huge monumental shift for me. And I realized that if that was the case, if it was me who was judging me, then I needed to love me first. We all need to love ourselves first. You hear the phrase, oh, if you want other people to love you, or if you want someone else's love, like a husband or wife or spouse, you need to love yourself first. And it's one of those lessons that you hear and you parrot fashion repeat it, but you don't really know it until you know it. This was the moment that I realized it. This was the moment I knew that I needed to love me first. But in order to do that, I had to be vulnerable with myself. And that meant I needed silence. I needed a second to breathe and just be in a space by myself, alone, figuring out where my 2-year-old went and what made her happy and what gave her joy. So I had to retreat and do it in secret. That was the only way I was going to have enough space and mental headroom to allow myself to be truly free and to let that 2-year-old out again. So genuinely, right up until I handed that book off to the editor, I really, really genuinely thought I would always keep this pen name secret. That was my plan. I had, created marketing systems around it that was going to be that way. And then there was a shift. So I don't know if you guys experience this, but there is a moment of separation. And I think this is why people talk about books as giving birth, because It's that that process of separating your creative artwork from you. That moment for me is the moment I hand it off to an editor, and it stops being my piece of art and it starts being a product. And that's a shift in my brain. And in that shift, I realized that I was free. I'd done it. I'd written something that was totally fucking me, totally fucking free of influence, and was just a thing that I wanted to do. And I didn't give a shit, like what the consequences were. I just needed to write that thing, and I'd done it. So I felt lighter, I felt freer, I felt happier. And, this book that I have written is rammed with competition. It's rammed with swearing. It's got dark characters and steam. Like, I have written some steam, baby. And you know what? I fucking loved it. I fucking loved it. I still love it. I love this book. And like, if you have been around for any amount of time, you will know that I never talk about my books like this. I'm always riddled with doubt and I'm riddled with fear. And, I fully expect come a couple of weeks out from the launch, I will start to get the jitters. But I feel different about this book because I wrote it for me. I literally just wrote it for me. And I love it. And I still love it. So it kind of doesn't matter what happens now. Obviously, I would love for it to make some money. But I'm just so fucking happy that I wrote this book. And I want to write more books like this. And I'm going to. That is literally what I'm going to do. So, and one last thing. This book is meant to be pure escapism. It's fun. It's not a literary masterpiece and it's not fucking meant to be. This book is meant to be one of those books that just whisks you away, keeps you gripped to the fucking pages and make you swoon and sigh and grin and just in sheepish delight, because that is what I did when I wrote it. Which leads me to the reveal. I am keeping the pen name because I think I need that pen name to be able to access that part of myself. It's almost like getting dressed into a costume before you go on stage, or it's permission. The name is the permission I need to access that part of myself. So my new pen name is Ruby Rowe. And I'm gonna, let me tell you about the name. So first of all, I chose Ruby because it's I don't know why, but it's a name that I have seen in the sapphic sphere a lot. And the reason I chose Rowe is because it's my stepfather's surname. And he has been encouraging me tirelessly to write naughty books, as he calls it, because they sell. And so it's a nod to him. The book is called A Game of Hearts and Heists, and this is the blurb. 2 enemies, 1 goal, steal each other's hearts. Scarlet Grey, disgraced assassin, is determined to get revenge. Quinn Adams, medic turned poisoner for hire, is her deadliest rival. For years, they've stolen each other's clients, sabotaged each other's businesses, and occasionally slept together. When the Magician Queen offers an irresistible deal, Scarlet and Quinn are forced to work together. But this is not a simple job. With an impossible heist ahead, they're going to have to trust each other. And that's not easy when they both have secrets to hide. Harder still when those secrets will betray the ones they love. Now, neither woman is sure if it's a heist they want to win or a heart. 2 women, 2 deadly professions, and a romance that could be their downfall. So, this is a steamy lesbian fantasy romance with enemies to lovers, a heist, found family, a secret royal, babes on bikes, and of course, only 1 bed. Oh, and the if you touch her, you die. Oh, I fucking love all of the tropes. They're all my favourite things. I'm so excited to share this with you. So if you read fantasy romance, I'm sorry, I've probably just blown the speakers. I apologise everyone. Actually, I don't. I do not apologise. I'm so fucking excited. But if you read fantasy romance, and you don't mind that this is a lesbian romance, then I want to hear from you. I am officially recruiting street team and advanced readers because this is a whole new genre, a whole new mailing list, a whole new everything. So I am in need of help to launch this puppy. So if this sounds like the sort of thing that you would like to read and you'd be happy to read an advanced copy in exchange for a review, or you'd like to be part of the street team, please let me know. You can either email my new account, which is ruby@rubyrow.co.uk, or you can DM me, or you can email my normal Sasha account. Whatever you want, get in touch. And the other thing to say is, if you like the sound of the book, I'm so excited, I can't even with myself. If you like the sound of the book, it is on pre-order. I'm so excited. It's coming out on February 10th, and yeah, it's coming, baby. It is coming. Literally. Sorry, I couldn't help it. Oh my God. That was poor. I will never do that again. Okay, so it is going to be launched on February the 10th. It's on pre-order. At the moment, we've only got the ebook. I'm just waiting for the final hardback and paperback covers, but they will be coming later too. And yeah, so that's it. This is my secret. This is also the book recommendation for the week. Obviously, please go buy this book. But this is me. No more secrets, no more hiding. Yeah, this is where we're at. All right, I think it's probably time I stop squealing my tits off and we get on with the episode. I did warn you this was going to be a long intro. In terms of very quickly summarizing where I'm at, I have been doing lots of marketing and setup in the background. I have created a TikTok and a Instagram for Ruby Row. I don't know which one I'm going to be doing yet. And I've been doing lots of research, sent the book off to the editor, all of that kind of good stuff. I'm not going to go into too much now. The two things that I'm going to be doing before we end for the year are finishing up the warm reader magnet for the back of the book, and then outlining a novella for cold readers and book 2. And then no doubt I'm going to be scrambling over Christmas to create marketing schedules and applying for promos and all the rest of it. So yeah, okay. And of course, the Anatomy of a Bestseller audiobook. The master has it. He's back from holiday. He's been working on it. I'm very, very excited. He's done some whizzy stuff with it, and the audio quality is fucking exceptional. I'm super excited to share this one with you. It will now not go out until the beginning of the year, but it is going to go live in January. Well, as long as the ACX gods allow it to go through the system, it will go live in January. I will sort of push it through the system over Christmas. So, yes, okay. So, the Rebel of the Week this week is Sam Ross. Sam says, I play board games as a hobby. Big, elaborate ones that take 10 hours to finish. 10 hours! And have a half dozen participants all vying for victory. It's a fun hobby. There's a surprisingly large and engaging community of gamers, and the competitive element of tournaments and events also speaks to me on a very deep level. I get it, honey, I get it. One of my favourite board games is Twilight Imperium. However, it's had some trouble lately. The community has gone soft. Soft? This is a game where scarce resources are meant to be fought over, but the competitive community has gotten so big and everyone likes each other so much that a new style of play has embedded itself in the minds of players where people help each other. You can't help each other in a competition. The phenomenon, you can help each other outside the competition, obviously, but when you are competing, you fight to the fucking death. This phenomenon, known as the boat floating, where an polite economic focused play causes a rising tide that floats all boats, meaning everyone scores a lot of points and gets close to the finish line together before one person passes it. This play style makes sense. It has a lot of analysis behind it and great players who swear by it, but it's so boring. I completely agree. I play this game to fight other players, to conquer planets, to blow up ships and armies. Oh God, I like the sound of this game. I don't play this to be a farmer, even if that means I get more points on average. So last month, I took matters into my own hands. I already love this fucking rebellion. To correct the community, spoken like a true villain, and point it back towards the blood sport. Oh, I fucking love this story. That this game was always meant to be. Spending almost 10,000 words of my nano word count, I wrote and edited a player's guide on how to win at the game by being the most vicious, bloodthirsty player you can be. Oh! I fucking love this. Oh. And then published this to community on their official strategies, forums, and tournament circuit. While most of the other players rolled their eyes and thought this was a joke, I'm already hearing back from others that have taken my advice and started attacks in their games for plunder and conquest. You fucking evil genius, this is brilliant. I fucking love this rebellion. Oh, completely contrary to the established boat float metagame, and are finding great success with it. What a fucking surprise! It warms my cold heart, me too, baby, me too, that my fellow players are reading my words and throwing Molotov cocktails at the peaceful plans of their competition. Oh my god, this is my favourite rebellion in ages. This is fucking dastardly genius. I love this, Sam. Thank you so much for sending this rebellion in. If you would like to be an evil rebel of the week, please do send in your story. It can be any kind of rebellion. It can be a nice one, okay? It's just that this one made me cackle like a fucking witch. You can email your rebel story to Becca over on rebelauthorpodcast@gmail.com. And then don't forget, there can be any kind of rebellion, big, small, or something in between. And thank you to Olivia Bedford, who has joined at the Rebel Readers Masterclass level. I'm super excited to welcome you into the fold. And of course, a giant thank you to all of my existing patrons. If you would like to get early access to all of the episodes, as well as bonus content and sneak peeks and exclusive news. So my patrons heard about this pen name reveal almost a week ago, actually, as this goes out. So yeah, if you want to be in the know and get all the gossip first, then you can from as little as $2 a month by visiting patreon.com/Sasha Black. This episode is sponsored by Kobo Writing Life. Kobo Writing Life is Kobo's free, fast, and easy self-publishing platform. KWL was built by authors for authors, and their team of dedicated book lovers is always working hard to help authors reach new readers around the world. With people embracing digital reading more than ever before, Kobo wants to give authors an opportunity to let their books stand out with the Kobo promotions tool. They post upcoming Kobo sales, many of which are exclusive to KWL authors, and they also offer lots of promos that don't require you to drop your price, so you don't need to worry about price matching across multiple retailers. If you're using free as a marketing strategy, you can also submit your books to be featured on Kobo's free page, which gets a ton of traffic. If you're a KWL author and don't yet have access to the promotions tool, email the team at writinglife@kobo.com and they'll get you sorted. If you want to learn more about KWL, check out the blog. No, you can check out the Kobo Writing Life podcast, available wherever you get your podcasts, and connect with them on social. You can create your free account at kobo.com/writing life. And I will just add one more thing. They have multiple newsletters for different promotions. So they've got audio promotions, like library type promotions, and then an email that goes out to authors on their general promotions. If you email writinglife@kobo.com, they can send you the link so that you can sign up to all three. I do recommend you do all three if you are wide, because there are a variety of deals, discounts, and promos that they send out. Okay, well, I told you episode 169 was going to be a good one, and that it was the fact that it's 69 was highly appropriate for this episode. I can't believe the serendipitous timing. However, after a fucking monstrous intro, I think we should get on with the episode. Hello and welcome to the Rebel Author podcast. Today, I am joined by Emilia Rose. With over 69 million online story views across 2 pen names, Emilia Rose is a USA Today best-selling author of steamy romance. She kicked off her writing career on Wattpad and began monetizing her writing through monthly subscriptions on Patreon. Within 6 months of writing, she fostered a community of readers who have helped propel her love for storytelling into a full-time career. Emilia is also the co-founder of Ream, an online subscription platform created for fiction authors. Hello and welcome.
Hi, thank you for having me.
You are
so
most
excited.
welcome. No, I'm excited to talk to you because you are everywhere at the moment and your journey is incredible and fascinating and really empowering because you haven't done it the way that everybody else has done it. And I love that because 1, rebel, and 2, I think we get very stuck hearing the same stories and thinking that there's only one way to do something. And I just don't believe that that's true. So that's why I was so excited that you said yes to coming on the podcast. So before we dive into questions about subscriptions and memberships and all of that stuff, I wondered if you could go into a little bit more detail about your journey. How did you get here? What is your story?
It's kind of normal, I guess. My story, I started reading when I was very young, and I remember I would grab a stack of 10 books for my mom to read to me every single night, and my love for reading just continued into my teens, and I started writing, dabbling in writing, and mostly on Wattpad. That's where I did all my werewolf smut reading, and so I started writing. And when I got to college, I stopped for a period just because I wanted to focus on my studies. But I really needed something after a while to kind of pick me back up and something I could do just to relax. And so I started writing again and posting on Wattpad. And my first story that I posted was werewolf romance, and it became very, very popular very quickly. I was getting about 1 million story views every single week, which was insane. I was oh my gosh. And for the longest time, my husband, who was my boyfriend at the time, he was like, you should monetize it. You should post it on Amazon. And I was like, no, I don't want to do that because I felt bad. That was my main thing. I was giving the story away for free, and I wanted those readers who started reading the story to be able to finish it. And so I was he was like, well, why don't you start a Patreon and you can you can offer bonus content. And I was still on the fence. But I started a Patreon instead and did early access instead of bonus content. And my first Patreon didn't really do too well because I don't know the reason. So I started a new brand. So I was doing my Emilia Rose stuff. I started a new Wattpad and a new Patreon at the same time, and it kind of exploded, both my Wattpad and my Patreon at kind of same time-ish. And then I just started expanding from there.
So I did not know.
Different places.
No, but this is incredible because I've learned more stuff because I didn't realize this was your second Patreon and second Wattpad account. So were you able to bring any of the original readers across, or?
Honestly, a few of them. A lot of people found me through both names, and then I told them that I was the same person, and they were like, no way, you're the same person. Because my first account, it wasn't spicy. I was writing strictly cleaner romance. It still alluded to sexy time. But my Emilia Rose brand does a lot more. There's explicit sex throughout the entire story. And that's what people, I think, at least the readers who I found on Wattpad, and who are supporting me on Patreon. So yeah, sort of.
This is incredible. I think I'm going to have to ask you one craft question about writing steam, but I'll do that at the end.
Oh yeah.
Okay, can you tell everyone how your Patreon works? What is the kind of content you give them? How regularly do you publish? How much are you publishing? How does your system work?
Yeah, so I'll actually start from Wattpad because it kind of starts there. When I first started publishing, I would publish a chapter on Wattpad, and then I publish an extra chapter on my Patreon or through my subscription. And it's I funnel people from Wattpad into Patreon, promising early access and delivering early access to more content, basically through like a cliffhanger. So I write the chapter on Wattpad. I have a cliffhanger at the very end. It makes people really, really want to read what's next because they don't want to wait a week, which is my usual updating schedule. I publish one chapter a week on Wattpad. But I wouldn't want to wait a week if I was reading the story. So at the very end, I have like a little author's note that basically says, hey, if you want to read the next chapter, you can get early access if you join my Patreon. And so that's basically how, like, very broadly how my Patreon works. It's mostly offering early access. I have dabbled in bonus content, but it doesn't seem to work as well, at least for my brand. People rather have more of the stories and more stories that I can produce for them. But basically, I give chapters on my Patreon that are pretty much like, each chapter is like 1,000 words, so pretty short. They all have cliffhangers, or I try to give them cliffhangers. And I publish, when I started, I was publishing like 1 to 2 extra chapters a week on my Patreon. But now, since I become full-time, I publish a lot more. I'm working on 3 different stories at the same time. So, and I publish anywhere between like 1 to 3 chapters per week for each story.
That is a lot. So up to 9 chapters a week. So up to 9,000 words a week.
Yes.
Ah. Okay.
I don't think you have to do it that way, because I've seen other people who do early access who only offer 1 extra chapter a week, which I assume would be a little bit longer, maybe like 3,000 words max. But
so
I have so much time.
So you're writing 3 stories concurrently?
Yeah.
My brain, it's like exploding. Oh my God. So so I just need a hot second. So these 3 stories, are they in different series? Please tell me they're in different series. Oh, okay.
Yes,
okay.
They're in different series.
Okay, that is slightly easier to. And so, but are they all like werewolfy or
no?
Oh, okay,
so
okay.
I've expanded a lot more based on Patreon feedback and my supporters' feedback, and they wanted me to expand out into contemporary romance. So I'm doing that as well. So right now I have a contemporary, which is like set in high school or academy setting, a werewolf paranormal story, and then I also have like an extra fun story that I do. So I'm just finishing up a mafia menage story on the 3rd day.
I love it. So for each one of these books that you're essentially writing, like say week 1, you post chapter 1. Let's just keep it simple for my non-math brain. So week 1, you post chapter 1 of all 3 stories. Week 2, you post chapter 2 of all 3 stories. But on day 1 of week 2, you're also posting chapter 1 to Wattpad. Is that kind of how?
Yeah.
Okay.
Basically. So yeah, I'll publish first on my subscription or on my Patreon. And then the next week, I'll post that chapter as free on Wattpad or any other free website that I use.
Yeah. Okay. Oh my goodness me. So do you have like 7,000 Gantt charts to like keep it all? Because I would be a mess. I have a Gantt chart right here. This is because I literally can't cope. Like, and I'm only working on 2 things that are in 2 different drafts. So, like, you're amazing. Okay. So can you explain the journey that your book takes? You've mentioned the Patreon bit and you've mentioned the Wattpad, but yes. I mean, I know I'm right in thinking this, but they're first drafts, aren't they? So
yes.
Like what is the full journey? How does your book get to publication? So like, are there other iterations? You are publishing, aren't you, as well? Not just okay. So talk to me about the back end of it once it's been published everywhere.
Yeah, so basically, once the book has been published and completed on Wattpad and Patreon, I get feedback. Basically, I look at some of the comments that I've received throughout the entire time I published based on the story. And if the book needs to be revised, then I'll revise it based off of those comments. But when I started, I would like hardcore go in and edit it like 3 times. But I don't really have time for that, 1. And 2, I don't really have any desire to go back and like really harsh edit an entire book once I finish it, because as I'm updating through Patreon, I'm constantly getting that feedback on where the story needs to go in order to please my readers. And so the book, once it's pretty much done, it's like in a place that readers actually want to read it. So I don't really have to go back and revise it that much. I really just send it to my editor and I say like, do like copy edits, do basic edits. She'll send it back to me. We'll go through another round of proofreading. And then it goes off to Amazon, all the other retailers because I'm wide. And I also put it on Radish as well.
Okay. I have no idea what Radish is. But I don't like a whole, is it what is like Wattpad?
Radish is like Kindle Vella. Do you know what Kindle Vella is?
Yeah. Serialized.
Yeah, so it's serialized.
Okay. Oh, this is just so fascinating to me. And so when you're drafting, so I know that you write into the dark, you don't outline, do you?
No, not at all.
So much. I mean, to be fair, like I will show you for listeners, I am showing a A3 piece of paper with some post-its on it, and that is the extent. That's a whole book there. That's the extent of it. I don't do anything else other than that. Like that is my outline. So it's not like I have loads and loads, but also I have like a sentence, like. Otherwise I just would like, I don't know. But what fascinates me is, so here's the thing about what I'm doing now is I'm writing under a secret pen name. And I am not sure how much feedback I want because I want to write what I want to write and I just want to release it. But also I don't want to put crap out. So like I will do some rounds of betaing like on the early books, but then I'm moving more towards the point where I'm like, well, I know what I want to write. And if it finds an audience, it finds an audience. And if it doesn't, it doesn't. Yeah. But so do you write really clean? Is that like...
I would say I write relatively clean. Like, even though I'm not outlining at all, basically what I do is I write the book as if I'm reading it for the first time. I have no idea what's going to happen next. I leave off on a cliffhanger that I might not even know what's going to happen next when I write the cliffhanger. But I'm like, wow, I like want to write the next chapter because I want to find out what's going to happen next. So I sort of write, I feel like I've written enough books to be able to write a lot cleaner compared to when I first started. So
how do you ever like come up with an idea that you needed to have seeded earlier?
Not really.
Okay.
When
that's the thing that blows my mind, because that's how unfortunately for me, that is how I write. And I'm like, because I look at everybody doing like Vella and stuff like that, and I'm like, I want to write linearly. Like I want to do that. But like it doesn't happen. I like just like chaos for me. It's like doing
very
a puzzle.
hard.
Yeah.
Like
so, and what happens is I will come up with an idea like 75% of the way through, and then like I will have to go back and seed it. So I can't do what you're doing, which is why I'm so deeply fascinated by it. So okay. So I just want to ask you all of the questions and like be in your brain to understand everything, because I think this is amazing. All right, I'm going to go back to my actual questions, which is one from one of my patrons, Maggie, who says, nice. Did Patreon expand your fan base and help you find new readers, or did you need the fan base in order to succeed on Patreon?
So Patreon specifically, they don't have any place where you can have discovery. So it's all your readers. But with that being said, like when I started my Patreon, I pretty much started it when I started my Wattpad. So I didn't have that many readers to begin with, and it kind of grew as I grew. And as a lot of times, like people are very hesitant to join a subscription just because like it's a monthly commitment and they don't know if they might not trust you yet, especially if you're like a new to them author. But when they see like a bunch of people, like even like 5 people or even like one person who's already joined your subscription, it kind of like builds a little bit of trust with them. So you don't have to have a huge fan base for it to work. But Patreon specifically doesn't provide discovery at all.
Yeah.
They actually like hinder, if you're not safe for work, they will like hinder you. Like they'll stop people from trying to find you, and it sucks a lot.
Yeah, like it is actually quite difficult. Like, because obviously I went to try and find you, and I was like, "What the?" Like, you actually really have to. Yeah, like it's.
I know.
And there's another Emilia Rose on there as well who came, and I was like, "What is going? Who is it?" Like, I was trying to find you.
Yeah.
Okay, so thinking, just kind of moving a little bit back to like the processes and the systems, that regardless of like how many words you write a week, writing across 3 stories is quite a lot. So do you have systems in place? Because obviously you have to do this consistently and not miss a day, not miss a week. So like, what are your systems in place to kind of help you do that? What do you ever get stuck? Do you have any like unblocking systems? Like how do you make sure that you deliver week on week on week on week?
That's a really good question. And my answer is probably not going to be a good one because I don't really have any systems. I make sure I get things done the day they need to be, at least the day they need to be done. So I have like on Mondays, I have a werewolf story that needs to be written. So I will make sure on Sunday or Monday, I write that story and nothing else.
Oh my gosh, or so you do it on the day.
Sometimes I do it. If I'm like procrastinating, I do it on the day, but I try to be ahead by a couple of weeks.
Oh, okay. Okay. Oh my God. I'm literally having heart failure over here.
No. Like okay. I'll try to get ahead. Sometimes I just like get lazy and I don't do it, which is bad.
Do you have piston strengths?
I haven't done it. I need to.
If you ever do it, please drop me an email and tell me what you
I will.
What you have, because I have theories here. Okay, so you do try to be in advance, but also yeah, okay. All right, thinking about Patreon itself, do you have any advice on picking tier levels and what goes into them? Because I think the first time I came across you didn't have as many tiers as you have now. So I just wondered, like, how do you know what to put into your tiers and what is a good offer? And like, how often should you change them? Should you just keep them the same? Like, how do you make those decisions?
Yeah, so when I started on my first Patreon, which didn't work out, I had a $1 tier. That's where I started. And for me, it wasn't really doing much for me. Like I had people, I might have had like 100 or 200 people who are supporting me, but if you're supporting somebody at a $1 level, they don't really receive that much of it. And like I was getting maybe $100 a month or something like that, and it wasn't worth it. And I would say price your lowest tier at $5, because even on my Emilia Rose Patreon, I started at $3 and I had a lot of people in the $3 tier, but I recently just retired that tier so nobody else can join it. And I feel like $5 is a good amount. Like $5 is like a coffee at Starbucks for the entire month, and you get access to that. So I would say start at $5 a month and start with only 3 levels or 3 tiers. Once you go anything like above that, it becomes kind of confusing at first, especially if you're very new to subscriptions. So make it very easy on yourself. And what you put in the tier really depends on the content that you're offering. So if you're offering bonus content, it's going to be a little different than if you're offering early access. And what I've found, I'll only speak on early access because it's what I'm most familiar with. A lot of people who do early access on their Patreon or through their subscription are basically doing, if you join their first tier, you get one extra chapter. If you join their second tier, their second lowest, sort of, like say it's a $10 tier, you get 2 extra chapters a week. And then maybe like a $15 tier, you get 3 extra chapters ahead, not a week, ahead of the free release schedule, if that makes sense.
It does, but that would get very confusing to someone like me who, like,
Yeah.
I would fuck that up, basically. I would definitely fuck that up. It's like
it does take a while to like really try to get it down. I know right now I'm updating 3 stories, and I just actually opened another Patreon for I'm publishing a graphic novel too. And so I'm all over the place right now. So I'm trying to get a good schedule going. But
with the early, okay, and so, but then that means you have to be 3 chapters ahead.
Yeah, but that also means you only have to publish 1 chapter a week. So like so the third tier is 3 chapters ahead. But then you publish just 1 chapter a week to tier 3, and you kind of bump the others down. Does that make sense?
I'm sure it does, but I am so shit with numbers.
It's a lot easier to like write it down and show.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
I'm not a great explainer. So.
No, it's me. I'm like, this is why everyone's gonna be laughing. So like I have this really bad habit of like, in the intros, I'll be like, oh, and 3 tips this, or like, and then I'll start counting, and then I'll get to 2 and I'll be like, wait,
it was just
what was I on? Like, it's not, is that, and I have a master's in research, so I had to be good at statistics. Who fucking let me near the numbers? I do not know. But anyway, okay, so we've talked about the tiers, and we've talked about like the kind of systems and Patreon as a piece of software, I suppose. What do you think are the key ways to promote and grow your subscription platform?
Yeah, so I've actually tested this a lot. I'm pretty sure when I started, I'm not positive because it's been a long time, but I think I tried advertising it, like with paid advertising. That didn't work. And I also tried doing advertising on social media, and that didn't work as well. And I think it didn't work because my content on Patreon is early access. So if it was bonus content, I think like maybe artwork, I think promoting it on social media would do very, very well. But mine's early access. So the way I promote it is at the bottom of my free chapters. So through Wattpad, I'll put a little author's note and say like, hey, you could read the rest of the story or some early chapters on Patreon, but I'll also do the same thing through my newsletter too. I might drop a chapter at the end of my newsletter, have them read it, and have like a button at the bottom that says read the rest on Patreon now.
And your newsletter, that will be patrons and normal book buyers who found you through.
Yes.
And so do you still advertise and market like the books on Amazon and wide, or do you find that your funnel from Patreon, so like do your patrons then go and buy the books as well, or is that a different audience buying the books?
So it's kind of both. Like I provide the rough draft through Patreon, and then a week before I publish it, like publish, I provide them with an advanced copy, so like very clean, edited, and revised. And some people message me and they're like, oh, thanks for this, but I already pre-ordered it. It just like blows my mind. I'm like, I literally told you guys I was going to give this to you and you pre-ordered it anyway. Thank you. Like, that's really cool. And I'm really happy and appreciate your support. And some people will actually buy the paperbacks and hardbacks as well. But I have done some paid Facebook ads. I honestly don't market that much. just because I'm all over the place. Like my books are in so many different areas. It's hard for me to manage all that by myself. So if I do paid advertising, I work with other people to advertise it for me, and manage those accounts.
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes a lot of sense. Also, you have a gigantic Patreon, so that's going to take a lot of time to manage it's a business essentially. Okay, you have a very engaged community. How did you do that? How did you build it? Like, what are some of the tips and techniques that you use to really like foster that community feeling and engagement level?
Yeah. So this is something I started on Wattpad, on both of my Wattpads that I had, that I feel like really helped me grow. So I would always put author notes at the very end of my chapters that were very personalized. And they were like, what do you think about this chapter? What do you think is going to happen next? Who do you think did it? Or like stuff like that. And then I'll ask them to comment in like the comment section, and they would. But then once they comment, I would respond. When I started, I had a lot of time. So I would respond to every single comment, and I'd go in and message people like privately, and I'd be like, thank you for reading my book. I hope you enjoy it. Let me know if you have any feedback. And so I did that on both my Wattpads, and they kind of exploded. And I try to do that on Patreon too. It's very hard because there's a lot of people to manage, and I can't talk to everyone. So right now I have an assistant doing some of that as well. But I want to say like that does work, because like I mentioned before, I literally just started a second Patreon for my graphic novel like 2 days ago. And I posted the first chapter on Webtoons. And at the end of the chapter, I did an author's note and basically say like, how do you like this? Comment. And people, I had like 26 comments by the end of, at least the last time I checked. So a few hours ago. And I responded to every single one. And I like their comments. And it's really just trying to like, let your readers know that you see them, that you like, and you appreciate them reading your book. And yeah, so that's like my main thing I've done.
Do you still like let them influence the direction the book will go? So like, for example, if somebody's like, oh, I really hope this happens, do you make sure that happens, or do you put a twist on it? Like, how does that? So you don't want to be predictable either, right? Like,
yeah. If I see a lot of people are commenting that they don't like something, then I'll switch it. Like, I'll definitely switch it. But sometimes people will comment and they're like, wow, I think this would be cool if this happened. And I haven't even thought about something like that happening. And so I'll start thinking like, okay, so what if this did happen? And I guess like my imagination like takes it from there. And sometimes it will go that way. And sometimes it will go in a different way that my readers love anyway. So
amazing. Are there any mistakes that you see authors making with Patreon or subscription, like subscriptions and memberships in general?
So I think it's like there's a few. One, I would say giving up too early. Like a lot of people, like it takes a long time to build a subscription and build trust with your readers. And a lot of people think that just because you have a huge fan base, that means you're going to be super successful in subscriptions, when that might not necessarily be the case. It's a lot different. Like having people on your subscription is a lot different than selling a book. Like you're selling access to monthly content that you need, like things you need to provide monthly. It's not just like a one-off, like buy my $4.99 ebook, which is like, it's completely fine to do it either way and to do it both at the same time, but it's just a different way of thinking. And I feel like a lot of smaller authors could get very discouraged when they see like bigger accounts and bigger authors try subscriptions as well, and they think like it won't work for them. But I don't consider myself like a huge author, and it worked for me. So that's one of the big mistakes I sort of see people make, is trying to do a subscription with the same mindset as selling individual ebooks.
Yeah, that's so interesting. There's definitely like a level of consistency, I think, required with subscriptions. And that it definitely leans towards people who are more consistent. I have seen people doing so I do a quarterly workshop. We have the Rebel Readers Masterclass, and every quarter we read a book together, or 2 books, and then I deconstruct the book and take out all the lessons, all the tools that the author's done, and it's like usually based on a theme. So like we've done an enemies to lovers, we've done like a fantasy and like world building, we've done a romance, we've done, so we've and we pick out all of the tools and tricks and things. But actually I've seen people doing monthly stuff, and I'm like, how, that's a lot of how do you do that? But I'm like, actually, or maybe that is quite, but so, and then obviously I see your method, which is with the literally writing the book through Patreon, which is incredible. That one I know I can't do. But it's still, I mean, I could, because I could write the book first and then release it. So again, it's all about thinking differently, right? Think outside the box.
Yes.
Don't hem yourself in. I don't even know where I'm going with this, what I'm talking about. I just find it all so interesting. All right. So I want to ask a little bit about craft, because you've mentioned cliffhangers a lot. So hit me with your best advice, your best cliffhangers. How do you create them? What kinds of cliffhangers do you use? Any advice for not letting the cliffhanger fall flat, basically?
Yeah, this is a good one. So like I said before, I write how I as if I were reading it for the first time. So usually how I write cliffhangers is I'll start writing a scene, and I'll come to the climax of that scene, but right before the climax, and then I'll cut it. I'll cut the chapter right there. And so something huge could be about to happen. He might, the male or the main male character might be about to kiss the girl, but then I'll cut it and have that for the next chapter. So it's building up throughout the chapter, and then once it gets to really high tension, it's just no, it's over. And you have to read the next chapter to find out what happens. But then by the time they read the next chapter, they're kind of sucked in already. And then I write the 1,000 words and leave it off on another cliffhanger. And they're like, oh, I need to read the next chapter. And so it's like a cycle.
That is so interesting, because that is not how I have ever heard a cliffhanger done before, which is fantastic. So I love the fact that this is completely new information to me, because usually you're like, oh yeah, you'll get the will they, won't they, and it will cut before, it will cut almost earlier than what you're saying, or they will kiss and then somebody walks in, or the ex arrives, or and that's where the cliffhanger happens. It sort of happens afterwards. So that's really interesting that you literally shear off the scene right as they're about, look at me leaning into the camera right as they're about to smooch. Oh my god, that's amazing. Wow, okay, I need a minute to sit in that. That's that's
as long as you need.
Yeah, I'm just oh my god, I don't want this podcast to end. I've got so many questions. This is incredible. So I feel like I have another question that I want to ask on this. Oh yeah, the steam. Let me ask about steam. How, so a lot of authors are afraid of writing smut. I fucking love a bit of smut, and I love writing it, and I love reading it. I love reading it. I only discovered smut last year, and now I'm that's all, yeah, seriously, I'm not even joking. I'm that's all I want to read now. And if it's queer, even better. But so but also I know that a lot of writers are afraid of writing it because, you know, there are words they don't want to use or words that you shouldn't use, or like you can tip very quickly into cheesy, cliche, cringy sex scenes. So like, how do you craft a good steamy smut scene?
Oh, that's a really good question too. So I get a lot of my inspiration from other sources. Whether that be like visual sources or videos. So I take a lot of my inspiration from different sources of media. And I will use that as like in my story as basically like what I want to see kind of happen with my characters. What I'll do actually, I also write along with the short story or the chapters every week. I write a 1,000 word short story, and it's just sex. It's literally just a scene of sex every single week, and it's really helped me become more comfortable in the stuff I write and become better at writing sex scenes. And it sounds like a lot, but it's really fun because I can like do and write whatever I want to write, and people who I'll post it on my Patreon. Some people won't like everything I write, but it really helps kind of drive my imagination. But it also like helps kind of get me comfortable with certain things and certain elements and kinks. Things I like. It also helps me test a lot. So like I recently wrote, this was a while ago, a short story that had like weapon play in it, and it's something I'd never done before. And I was like, oh, so let's see, like maybe my supporters will like this. But I thought it was really hot and sexy, and so I posted it, and I was like surprised. Everyone was like, oh my gosh, like you need to write this story. But then I'll write stories that I really, really enjoy. Like I want to write more of it, and it will fall flat.
No.
And so. And I'm just like, no, like these are my favorite ones. Why don't you guys like them? But I think a lot of it is just practicing. And like over time, I've found that I've become more comfortable with certain words too. Like when I started, I really did not like the word cunt at all. I hated that word so much.
I read a lesbian novella recently, and there were so many C-bombs. I was like, and I will use that word. Like, I haven't dropped a C-bomb on this podcast yet. However,
sorry.
No. My guests have. My guests have.
Okay.
I just haven't. And I don't know why, because I use it frequently in day-to-day life. So I don't know why I haven't dropped it. Anyway, but there were so many C-bombs in this book. I was like, I almost numbed to it, and I'd never read a book with it in there, and I love it. Like you always hit, you know, it's like clit and core and apex and, you know, whatever else. You always sex, you see my sex or their sex or whatever, you see that like a lot. But yeah, I hadn't read a book with the C-bomb in it, and so I was like, oh wow, like I think I like it, like I think I'm gonna use it too, you know.
I actually found that like I do not like writing like flowery language in my sex scenes. I like the explicit, like hardcore words, and it makes it more real, and it's like more raw, which my characters are very like raw and very like alpha-y. So yeah, it makes it more real, at least for me.
I love it. So, what was so your sources of inspiration. So I take it you read a lot of like comparison authors and stuff?
Actually, I don't really read a lot while I'm in like a good writing phase.
Okay.
I watch a lot of I listen to a lot of music, and I watch a lot of anime. And I find that a lot of the stuff I do read and watch are not romance at all.
That's so interesting.
And so, yeah, I don't know. It's like everyone gives advice that you should read a lot, but I like to just consume stories in general because like I don't want to be stuck in I'm just publishing books. I want to like create a story and create a world for people to live in. And whether that be in like written form or graphic novel or animation, like I want people to live in a story. And I don't necessarily think you have to read like books, like novels in order to like get that inspiration and get a feel of how a story should be created. So I do watch a lot of stories through anime and just Netflix and stuff like that.
I love this so much. This has genuinely been one of the most interesting episodes for me because it's so different to everything that I've experienced. So I absolutely love this. So what, like, just one last very easy question. So you're writing 3 books concurrently. So how many books do you publish a year? Like, how long are your books generally? Yeah.
So my books are about 80,000 words. Some are a lot longer. I think my longest book is like 216,000. Yeah, it was really long. I don't know why it went on so long. But it was fun to write. But I have a backlog of books that I haven't published yet that are just like waiting for me to publish, because I didn't start actually publishing on Amazon right away, like right when I started writing. So this year I published 8 books. Next year I'm probably going to publish about 8 books as well. But that probably will drop down to like 4 books the next year, just because this backlog is just built up for so long. So yeah, it's within that range.
Yeah, 4 to 8. Okay, amazing. I'm very sad that we have come to the end of this podcast. However, this is the Rebel Author podcast. So tell everyone about a time you unleashed your inner rebel.
Oh, so I am not a rebel at all. I'm like the definition of like good girl, sort of, but good girl who writes smut.
Yeah, good girl writing bad boys.
Bad things, yeah. But I guess when I started writing and publishing through Patreon, I was still in college and I was planning on going to grad school. And I was going to be like, I wanted to be a psychologist. So I wanted to get my doctorate and do all of that. But I started making a full-time living off my writing while I was still in college. And I remember going home for Christmas break and talking to my parents about it. And they're very supportive of my writing now. But then they were like, I don't know if that's a good idea. Like you wanted to become like a doctor of psychology. And I come from like a low income family. So like being creative and doing like anything creative as a job isn't really like, you don't really think you can. And so I remember my dad waiting until the very last moment to tell me it wasn't a good idea. And I got on the plane just like crying, like sobbing, that I didn't think he would support me by doing it. But I was like, you know what? I'm just going to do it anyway. Like, I'm going to write because I love writing, and I'm going to publish because it's going well for me so far. So I hope it could just get better if I just do it full time. And it took off. And they're very supportive of me now. But it took off in a way that is not really normal for writers. Usually you go like the KU route and publish like a book a month. So that's sort of rebellish.
No, I think it is a big rebellion. And funnily enough, your story is quite similar to mine in that I also was doing psychology, and my mom very sensibly was like, I think you should get a proper job, like, blah, blah, blah. And I just wanted to round off, and I hope you don't mind me saying this because you are very open about it, but you are a 6-figure author because of Patreon, aren't you? So like, yes. Yeah, which is absolutely fucking incredible. So like it is just awe-inspiring. So yeah, I think that is amazing. Oh, I did have one last question. How long have you had your Patreon?
I think I've had it since 2019.
Okay.
So three-ish years now.
Okay. Amazing. Wow. Would you like to tell everyone where they can find out more about you, find your amazing Patreon, and anything else that you would like to add?
Yeah, so you can find my Patreon at patreon.com/Emilia Rose Writing. And then my website too is emiliarosewriting.com. As for like professional side of things, I'm also working with two amazing co-founders on Ream, which is sort of like Patreon, but for fiction authors. And it's going to be a lot more optimized than Patreon is right now. And yeah. So we're working on a bunch of different stuff on the back end, but we have a community right now that's called Subscriptions for Authors on Facebook. So if you want to learn more,
and Dream is an extension of that. Is that?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Amazing. Okay. Well, thank you so much for your time today. And of course, a giant thank you to all of the show's patrons and all of the show's listeners. If you would like to get early access to all of the episodes, then you can by visiting patreon.com/Sasha Black. I'm Sasha Black. You are listening to Emilia Rose, and this was the Rebel Author Podcast. Next week, I am going to be joined by C.L. Polk to talk about feminist fiction for the final episode of this year. I do hope that you all have a Merry Christmas, a Happy Hanukkah, or whatever other festival or holiday, or even summer on the beach that you are having, wherever you are in the world. Thank you for your support. Thank you for listening and sticking with me this year. You're all fucking amazing. We're all fucking amazing. And here is to a banging 2023.
Don't forget to tune in and subscribe on your podcatcher. And when you have a moment, please leave a review.